Hey everyone, welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the world of D&D alignment. You know, that age-old system that defines our characters' moral compasses.
Yeah.
Big thanks to Live RPG Reads and Paul Bello, fine fellow, for suggesting this awesome article, Beyond Good and Evil, Mastering D&D Alignment for Your Character. It's a topic that's always fascinated me. You know, because it goes beyond just labeling a character as good or evil. It really gets into the nitty-gritty of how their moral framework shapes their choices in the game. You know, just last week, our group was playing and things got really interesting. My Lawful Good paladin was faced with a situation where a group of bandits had stolen from a local village. Now, normally, it'd be a no-brainer. Track him down, bring him to justice, the whole 9 yards. But the twist was, the leader of these bandits was a childhood friend who had fallen on hard times. Suddenly, my paladin's commitment to upholding the law clashed with his personal feelings of loyalty and compassion.
That's a classic example of how alignment can lead to really compelling role-playing moments. It forces you to consider the complexities of morality and make choices that aren't always easy or straightforward. It's not just about being a goody two-shoes or a mustache-twirling villain. It's about understanding the nuances of your character's moral compass and how it guides their actions.
Exactly. And that's what I love about this article. It really dives deep into those nuances, exploring the different facets of each alignment and how they can manifest in a character's personality and behavior. So for those of you who might be new to D&D or just need a refresher, let's break down the basics of this whole alignment system. We've got the classic 3x3 grid, lawful, neutral, and chaotic across the top, and good, neutral, and evil down the side. This gives us 9 distinct alignments, each representing a different philosophical outlook on the world. Where your character falls on that grid can really influence how they approach problem solving, interact with others, and ultimately shape their destiny in the campaign.
The article does a great job of explaining how these alignments aren't just about restricting players, but about providing a framework for richer role-playing. Think of it as a set of guidelines, not ironclad rules. As the article states, alignment is not a strict path, but a nuanced blueprint for character actions and growth. So you don't have to feel completely boxed in by your chosen alignment. There's always room for interpretation and flexibility.
Absolutely. And let's not forget the 2 axes that define this whole system.
Yeah.
The law-chaos axis and the good-evil axis. These represent the core philosophical and moral dilemmas that your character might wrestle with.
Right. The law-chaos axis isn't just about whether your character follows the rules or not. It's about how they view the structure of society and their place within it. Think of it like this. On one end, you have the lawful characters who believe in order, structure, and a clear set of rules to guide behavior. They might be knights upholding a code of chivalry, or judges dispensing justice according to the law. On the other end of the spectrum, you have the chaotic characters who value freedom, individuality, and breaking free from societal constraints. They might be rebels fighting for a cause, adventurers seeking uncharted territories, or even rogues living outside the bounds of conventional morality.
And then, of course, we have the good-evil axis. This one's all about a character's fundamental moral compass. Where do their motivations lie? Are they driven by a desire to help others? Or are their actions fueled by self-interest and ambition?
Exactly. It's about where your character falls on that spectrum of altruism versus selfishness. At one end, you have the good characters who strive to make the world a better place, who act with compassion and empathy, even at personal risk. Think of classic heroes, healers, or anyone who puts the needs of others before their own. Then at the other end, you have evil characters motivated by personal gain power, or even the desire to inflict suffering on others. This doesn't necessarily mean they're all cackling villains, but their actions often stem from a place of self-preservation and disregard for the well-being of others.
Now let's get into the specifics of each alignment, starting with the lawful alignments. Lawful good, for example, often represents the epitome of heroism and righteousness. We're talking about those classic paladins, shining knights in armor, upholding justice and protecting the innocent. They believe in a structured society with clear rules and are driven by a deep sense of duty and honor.
The article mentions a really interesting point about lawful good characters, though. They often struggle with balancing justice and mercy because they hold themselves to such high standards. They might find themselves in situations where the letter of the law clashes with their own sense of compassion. What happens when a lawful good character is faced with punishing someone who has done wrong but has a compelling reason for their actions? That's where the real moral dilemmas come into play.
That's a great point. It's those kinds of dilemmas that really add depth to a character and make their choices feel meaningful. It's not always black and white, even for those who strive to be paragons of virtue. So moving on to lawful neutral, we see a different kind of order at play. These characters are less concerned with good versus evil and more focused on upholding the system, whatever that system may be. They believe in following the rules, maintaining order, and ensuring stability, even if it means putting aside personal feelings or moral judgments.
Think of judges who deliver verdicts based solely on the law, regardless of whether they personally agree with the outcome. Or bureaucrats who enforce regulations with unwavering precision, no matter the human cost. They might not be driven by malice, but their strict adherence to the established order can sometimes have unintended consequences. They're the embodiment of just following orders, for better or for worse.
And then we get to lawful evil, which is always a fascinating alignment to explore. These are the characters who exploit the system for their own gain, using the rules to manipulate and control others. They might be tyrants who seize power through legal loopholes, corrupt officials who twist the law to their advantage, or even cunning masterminds who operate within the shadows, using their knowledge of the system to pull the strings.
What's intriguing about lawful evil characters is that they often believe they're acting in their own best interests, even if their actions harm others. They see the world as a game to be won, and they're willing to play dirty to come out on top. They can be incredibly charming and persuasive, using their charisma and intelligence to manipulate others into doing their bidding. But make no mistake, their ultimate goal is power, and they'll stop at nothing to achieve it.
It's like they found a way to weaponize the very systems that are meant to maintain order and fairness, and that can make them incredibly formidable adversaries, because they know how to play the game better than anyone. All right, now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about those neutral alignments. These are the characters who often walk a fine line between order and chaos, good and evil. They might not be as easily categorized as their lawful or chaotic counterparts, but that's what makes them so intriguing. They operate in shades of gray, making choices based on the situation at hand, rather than adhering to a rigid code of conduct. Starting with neutral good, we find characters who are guided by their conscience and a desire to do what's right, but they're not necessarily bound by laws or traditions. They might be healers who offer their services to anyone in need, regardless of their social standing or past deeds, or mediators who seek peaceful resolutions to conflicts, even if it means bending the rules a bit.
The article highlights the pragmatism of neutral good characters. They're adaptable and resourceful, finding creative solutions to problems that others might overlook. They're not afraid to get their hands dirty, but their actions are always motivated by a genuine desire to help others and make the world a better place. They're the kind of people who see the good in everyone and believe that everyone deserves a second chance.
And then we have true neutral, which is often the most difficult alignment to grasp, even for experienced players. These characters strive for balance in all things, seeing both good and evil, order and chaos, as necessary forces in the universe. They might be hermits who live in harmony with nature, seeking to maintain the natural order of things, or monks who detach themselves from worldly desires, pursuing a path of inner peace and enlightenment.
The article draws a fascinating parallel between true neutral characters and druids, who revere nature and understand the delicate balance that governs the natural world. They see the interconnectedness of all things and strive to avoid upsetting that equilibrium. They're not necessarily passive or indifferent. They might take action if they perceive a threat to that balance, but their primary goal is to maintain harmony and stability. They're the embodiment of the yin and yang, understanding that light and darkness, creation and destruction, are two sides of the same coin.
Now let's venture into the realm of neutral evil, where self-interest reigns supreme. These characters are opportunistic and pragmatic, always looking out for number one. They might be mercenaries who fight for the highest bidder, regardless of the cause, or thieves who steal from the rich and keep the spoils for themselves. They're not necessarily cruel or malicious, but they won't hesitate to exploit others for their own gain.
The article points out that neutral evil characters can be particularly dangerous adversaries because their motivations are so fluid and unpredictable. They're not driven by a grand plan or a desire for world domination. They're simply looking for the next opportunity to benefit themselves. They're the embodiment of the every man for himself mentality, willing to step on anyone who gets in their way. They're like chameleons, adapting to any situation and blending into any crowd, always seeking an advantage.
All right, let's talk about those chaotic alignment. The rebels, the free spirits, the characters who live life on their own terms. Starting with chaotic good, we have those who fight for justice and freedom, but aren't afraid to break the rules to achieve their goals. They might be revolutionaries who overthrow tyrannical regimes, vigilantes who dispense justice outside the law, or simply individuals who follow their own moral compass. Even if it leads them down unconventional paths, they believe in doing what's right, even if it means challenging authority or upsetting the status quo.
The article describes chaotic good characters as rebellious heroes, and I think that captures their essence perfectly. They're often driven by a strong sense of idealism and a desire to make the world a better place, but they're not bound by conventional methods or societal norms. They're willing to take risks, break the mold, and fight for what they believe in, even if it means going against the grain. Think of Robin Hood, stealing from the rich to give to the poor, or those legendary figures who stood up to oppressive rulers, inspiring others to fight for their freedom.
And then we have chaotic neutral, which is perhaps the most unpredictable alignment of them all. These characters are guided by their whims and impulses, valuing freedom above all else. They might be wandering adventurers who seek out new experiences, pranksters who delight in causing mischief, or even eccentrics who follow their own unique path, unburdened by societal expectations.
The article emphasizes that chaotic neutral characters are driven by a deep-seated need for personal autonomy. They reject any attempts to control or restrict their behavior, whether it comes from laws, traditions, or even the expectations of others. They're fiercely independent and often unpredictable, making them both exhilarating and challenging companions. You never quite know what they'll do next, which can lead to some truly memorable and sometimes chaotic moments in a campaign. They're the wild cards, the unpredictable elements that keep things interesting and shake things up.
And finally, we arrive at chaotic evil, the alignment often associated with pure mayhem and destruction. These characters embrace chaos for its own sake, reveling in the suffering of others and the breakdown of order. They might be warmongers who delight in violence and bloodshed, demons who seek to corrupt and destroy, or simply individuals who take pleasure in inflicting pain and suffering on others.
It's important to note that chaotic evil characters aren't necessarily mindless berserkers. They can be cunning and manipulative, using their understanding of chaos to sow discord and manipulate others to their own ends. They might be masterminds who orchestrate elaborate schemes of destruction, or they might simply be opportunists who exploit moments of chaos to advance their own agendas. They're the embodiment of entropy, seeking to dismantle the very fabric of society and revel in the ensuing chaos.
So as you can see, the alignment system in D&D is far more nuanced than simply labeling characters as good or evil. It's a framework for understanding their moral compass, their philosophical outlook,
Right.
and how they navigate the complex world of the game. But here's the thing. It's not just about picking a spot on the grid and calling it a day. Alignment is.
Right.
It's a dynamic concept that can evolve over the course of a campaign. Think about it. As your characters face challenges, make choices, and interact with the world, their beliefs and values might be tested, leading to subtle shifts in their alignment.
Absolutely. The article emphasizes that alignment isn't a static label, but a fluid spectrum that can change as your character grows and develops. Imagine a lawful good paladin who witnesses a corrupt system that punishes the innocent while protecting the guilty. That experience might challenge their faith in the established order and lead them to question whether true justice can be achieved. Within the confines of the law, they might find themselves bending the rules or even breaking them in pursuit of a higher ideal, edging closer to a more chaotic good approach.
That's what makes character development so compelling in D&D. It's not just about leveling up and gaining new abilities. It's about how those experiences shape your character's moral compass and their outlook on the world.
The article provides a great example of this with a table called Alignment-Based Choices, which presents various scenarios and how different alignments might respond to them. It's fascinating to see how those responses can vary, even within the same alignment, highlighting the individual nuances that make each character unique. For instance, let's say a group of adventurers stumbles upon a treasure chest filled with gold. A lawful good character might insist on finding the rightful owner or donating it to a worthy cause, while a chaotic good character might see it as an opportunity to fund their next adventure or distribute it among the less fortunate, even if it means bending the rules a bit.
Right, and that's where the real fun of role-playing comes in. It's about getting into your character's head, understanding their motivations, and making choices that feel authentic to their personality and alignment. And let's not forget about party dynamics, especially in groups with mixed alignments. This is where things can get really interesting, and sometimes
a little heated. Oh, absolutely. Imagine a party with a lawful good paladin who believes in upholding justice at all costs, a chaotic neutral rogue who lives by their own code, and a neutral evil sorcerer who is always looking for an angle. That's a recipe for some epic clashes of personality and ideology. But here's the beauty of it. Those clashes can lead to some of the most compelling role-playing moments in a campaign.
Totally. It's about finding ways to navigate those differences. compromise when necessary,
Yep.
and learn to appreciate the unique perspectives that each alignment brings to the table. It's like that old saying, opposites attract. But in a D&D party, those opposites can also create some serious friction if you're not careful.
The article provides a handy party harmony guide with tips for managing those mixed alignment groups. It emphasizes the importance of communication compromise and understanding each other's motivations. Because let's face it, in a world full of dragons, dungeons, and dangerous quests, the last thing you want is your party falling apart due to internal conflicts.
Exactly. A successful party, even one with clashing alignments, needs to find a way to work together, to leverage those differences into strengths, and to ultimately achieve a common goal. And that's where the real magic of collaborative storytelling happens.
One last thought I found particularly intriguing in the article is the relationship between class and alignment. We often see certain classes associated with specific alignments. Paladins are typically lawful good, rogues tend towards chaotic alignments, and so on. But the article encourages us to break free from those conventions and explore the possibilities of unconventional combinations.
Ooh, I love that idea. What about a chaotic good paladin who fights for justice but refuses to be bound by the rigid codes of a traditional order, or a lawful neutral rogue who operates within the shadows, but adheres to a strict personal code of honor? It's all about finding those unique twists that make your character stand out and challenge those preconceived notions.
Exactly. The article reminds us that alignment is a tool, not a cage. It's a framework to guide your role-playing choices, but not to restrict your creativity or limit your character's potential.
I think that's a great takeaway for all of us. Alignment is a powerful tool for creating compelling characters and enriching our D&D experiences. It's about understanding the nuances of morality, exploring the complexities of different ethical perspectives, and ultimately, using those insights to bring our characters to life in a way that feels both authentic and engaging. So, as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of D&D alignment, I have one final question for you, dear listeners. What alignment do you find most intriguing, and why? Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. We'd love to hear your perspectives.
And a huge thank you again to Lit RPG Reads and Paul Bello, that fine fellow, for bringing this fascinating article to our attention.
Until next time, happy adventuring.